the best thing ever happened to me today is to be a Black African. It's the best
Amen.
thing ever happened to me right today is being a Black African. And that, when we can assure and reinforce, because look, if I'm Zimbabwean, if I start to make wine, I'm gonna introduce Zimbabweans to it. If you are Ethiopian, if you start to do wines, this is a win-win for everybody. I understand this could take from those with too much, but
that's okay.
This is Salam and Hello, where stories of joy and justice vibrate with the rhythm of Africa and the diaspora.
We're worried, anxious group of people trying to move along. Maybe one day we'll get onto something. Until then we say, hold on. I know it's hard, but baby, you just got to hold on.
Salam and hello, everyone. My name is Lily Bakala Piper, and as always, I am thrilled that you have joined us today. So, my family has had the good privilege to travel to South Africa on a few occasions. We've gone for work, we've gone for pleasure, and we've had the joy of taking our kids. And our first family trip there was really motivated by the fact that we've named our son Silas after Nelson Mandela. His name is Silas Nelson. And of course, with that history, we wanted to go to South Africa, walk the streets that Mandela walked, and experience the country that he so beautifully tried to preserve and build. In fact, this year marks the 10th anniversary of his death, and I think it's safe to say that the continent and the world misses Madiba, misses his leadership and his vision. So once again, we took a third trip this year. But this time, I was determined that we would patronize and give our business to Black-owned businesses. As much as possible, I wanted our business and our investment and our tourism dollars to go to the 80% of the population that has been denied so much opportunity, even since the election in 1994 of South Africa's first Black president, Nelson Mandela. So I happened to run across an article in the New York Times written by John Elgon, the Johannesburg bureau chief for the Times, highlighting the Black winemakers in the country and the growth of the wine industry. It was a fantastic article and gave me so many options of where I could take my family. Myself, I'm a wine lover. I don't know much about wine, but I know that I enjoy it. I know a few different kinds that I enjoy. And so I was really excited to take my kids and my family to two places. One, a Black-owned vineyard, and then another, a restaurant led and owned by a Black chef. And so that's where my guest today comes in. If you read the New York Times article, which we will definitely include in the show notes today, you'll see that Elgon described Munashe Kwaramba, the owner, chef, and sommelier of Hari Kitchen, as a tour de force. What a compliment. Elgon, in his tour of South Africa, had many, many meals, but he talked about the meal at Hari Kitchen being probably the best of his entire trip, which I really says a lot. So we took my family. We had a 6-course pairing meal at Hari Kitchen. And when we arrived, we were delighted that Munashe himself greeted us and welcomed us to his restaurant. I think in all of my travels around the world, that's the first time that has happened, that the chef himself comes out and welcomes a guest. So immediately we felt at home. Immediately we felt connected. And as he started to tell us a story about his work and his restaurant, I knew that I had to bring him on the show. Munashe is only 27 years old and came to South Africa as a student for electrical engineering. He had to get a job, so he did so at a winemaker's vineyard. And through that experience, his love of wine just blossomed. And since then, he has opened Hari Kitchen. He started his own wine label called Global Sip, and he is making a name for himself across the culinary scene in South Africa. So it is my great joy and delight to welcome Munashe Kwaramba to the show today, the chef, sommelier, and culinary genius behind Hari Kitchen, and a winemaker and a storyteller too. So welcome to the show, Munashe. It is so good to have you with me today.
Salam.
Salam. That's the perfect way to start.
A beautiful honor and a great pleasure to be on such a beautiful platform. Thank you so much first and foremost, the visit with the family, that makes me feel absolutely stellar. And to
Oh,
follow, the podcast invite, I mean, what could be better from a lunch outcome? That should be one of the best outcomes from a lunch. I mean,
I tell
not
you.
all chefs get a chance to sit on a podcast.
Oh
And
no, but
it's
it's my joy truly because like I said, we arrived at Harry Kitchen and you welcomed us. And because I'd read the article and seen your picture, I knew it was you and I was just stunned. And for our family, it was a highlight of our trip to be with you and to be in your restaurant and enjoy truly the work of arts that you presented to us that day. So the joy
uh,
is mine.
no, look, it's the objective we're trying to create is a feeling of home far from home. We're not traveling or hustling and bustling. It's a
Yeah,
difficult life, but my objective when somebody gets to Harry Kitchen, I gotta make them feel at home. So if they can
yeah.
feel at home far from home, it's the best for me.
You succeeded. So let's dive right into your story, Munashe. So I, I mentioned that you came to South Africa from Zimbabwe for a completely different purpose.
That's right.
So when
That's
people
right.
ask you about your story, how do you summarize it? How do you capture in brief how you got to be the chef and owner of this beautiful restaurant?
I had my own personal goals and business, and I tell you, wine find me. I had no business here. Wine, wine find me gathering around my life, but I also have a wine bug, and I can't cure it. It's just something I can't fix. I am allergic to bad wines. I only can drink good ones.
Me too. I have the same allergy. I have the same allergy. I'm trying to tell my husband, I'm sorry. I know it's a bit pricey allergy to have, but I have the same.
I tell you. So yeah, the story of this young man is one which could be put in simplified words. I'm born and bred Zimbabwean. I went to school, grew up in Zimbabwe, whole family over there, and I migrated to come down to Stellenbosch University to study electrical engineering. So that's what brought me at the center of winelands, and I really had no intentions to become a sommelier. If I would tell my mom, the first time I told my mother I'm slowing down on engineering for sommelier, she was ecstatic. She's like, "Wow, what is that?" But to her disappointment, in some sense, she's like, "What is that about?" But now, different story. She tell all her friends what is a sommelier. She's the best definition to give to a regular person to explain what is a sommelier. She knows what is a sommelier. So yeah, engineering and fast forward it, I get a holiday job to work in winelands, like you mentioned earlier. As an African kid, you gotta get to work whilst you are improving your own personal skills. Fast forward, I did run a few restaurants. We started with one La Coin Francais by Badenhorst is quite a really well accomplished chef, and he bring me on board from Grand Provence. We went and opened his first restaurant with me, 2017, 2018, 19. He grew to a few more establishments, and I become a group sommelier at 23 years old.
You've led a couple of kitchens. You've now immersed yourself in the world of sommelier and becoming a qualified sommelier, which is, like you said, at 23 is just remarkable. That is an engineering of the beverage industry, becoming the top
True.
echelon of the wine industry for sure.
Absolutely true, yeah.
But as also as a Zimbabwean in South Africa. So, all of us who know on the continent, we're very aware of the challenges that exist in South Africa at times. So tell me, as a Zimbabwean in particular, what that path looked like for you as you entered into this industry.
The welcome from the South Africans has been amazing. I'm in Franschhoek, a small little town, very, very rich atmosphere. But you have got also the other downside, the small location, poverty in there is is a little
Mm,
bit
mm.
at a higher rate. But and that's where I come from. I'm coming from these regular streets of
Yeah.
Franschhoek. The difference, the only difference between me and a South African kid who will be me is because I was born in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
But the opportunities and the possibilities to growth, we had to make them. We had to make the opportunities, and I think that's what I learned. The the bigger thing I learned about this is how to create your own opportunities. Look, I used to wash dishes in kitchens. That's the first part. I used to wash dishes. I polish cutlery. Uh, I raised through ranks. I did
Yeah.
waitering.
You started at the bottom. Yeah.
And I think that is what the gift I would say I was given by the South African wine industry. They allow me to become just, an opportunity for an African child. This is how this was presented to me. I had to make something of it or nothing.
So let me follow up on that because, the one thing, of course, when we noticed as tourists to South Africa is that the country still has a ways to go of distributing wealth and opportunity.
Yes,
It's
yes,
by no way, since 1994 achieved, I think, the hopes that Mandela has had for the country by any stretch. And we're 30 years on from the, that moment in time. So in an industry where I think I read in that Times article in particular, Black people make up 80% of the population, but only 2% of the wine vineyards and the land that vineyards are on are owned by Black people. Only 2%.
yeah,
And that is in the context of South Africa. I think wine is their second biggest export. So when you're
yes,
thinking about wealth distribution and opportunity, Black people have yet to access that. We're a long way from seeing equity there. So what does it feel like right now to be a winemaker and sommelier in that context? Because I think it's important for us to appreciate that you're not in the US, you're not in Europe, you're in a country that is still self-actualizing on the promises it made over 30 years ago.
yeah. And look, we're still a far bit away, but my projection independently is to really do this sommelier and chef thing so well that some of these local kids, when they look at me, because I am genuinely from these streets, like in the true sense. I get here when I was 18. I'm I'm
Mm,
I'm a good example. I'm just like a kid who come from Eastern Cape. That's
mm,
the equivalence I could give to Zimbabwe to that. And I was
mm.
dropped in the heart of food and wine, and there is a few bit of opportunities in a long run. And I've been fortunate. Good mentors, good perhaps upbringing. But going back to how that distribution is, we're still far from a distribution equity where we could say here is the Africanness in the southern part of Africa, Franschhoek. That part is still far-fetched. We still need to get more Black people involved in the wine business, more Black winemakers, more Black sommeliers, more Black, because this will not teach, but allow the exposure of the other Black people to want to come and explore what is this, because it's a very small, rich town. And I tell you, for me, the New York Times have amazingly influenced my
Wow.
reputation and just the fact that I was featured in New York Times. I didn't understand what that means a while ago. I didn't understand what that means. But
Yeah.
today I'm sitting in a position where somebody will come to me and say, "Hey, because of New York Times, I'm here." And that's my biggest dream, to show these young generation coming. I teach the Franschhoek Academy, I lecture there, and it's all Black local kids. Same kids, I meet them at the lecture, and they see a little bit of my post. These days, I'm proud of the New York Times. I said, look, this is the exact same kid where you are 8 years ago. You can be like this, and
Yeah.
my dream is for 2 or 3 of them to just take it and run twice faster and better than me.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can duplicate yourself plus, that definitely is a dream. But something you said really strikes me about the importance of us helping each other as well. So when my family came, and this is what we're trying to do with this show, Salam and Hello, is to shine a light on the innovations, the thinkers, the creators who are creating solutions already. We do not need help from elsewhere. The solutions are in our hand. And so that exposure, though, is so critical of saying that we exist. When I read that article, I was also struck by the fact there are only 2 or 3 fully Black-owned wine labels in a country that has over 2,800 vineyards. I mean, that is a shocking statistic. And so when you think about the industry right now, in particular for women and smaller businesses, I think we all know the Niederbergs and the, what's that other big one? I can see it in my mind's eye. Yeah, exactly. We all know those names. Yeah. But for women in particular, for smaller businesses, do you see the industry making room for them?
Yeah, I've been fortunate in this particular ground. Tuan Price, she's American, but she's the force to be reckoned with, particularly women empowerment. It's one of these small things you get to observe as you grow into business and in person, spiritually, physically, and her approach to women empowerment is one that's so vivid because she will go and pick somebody who is fairly not so much popular, and she has a way of connecting that certain circle of women empowerment. And I do see that growing in particularly the wine scene because, hey, do you know who drinks most of the wine produced in the world?
I'm sure it's women. I'm so sure. I feel like men drink beer. So I feel like women must be the wine consumers.
It is. And then you know what I figure out now? Because we're working on another project in the future where we want to get to see, it's a study of what really women likes to drink, the style. I'm thinking ahead of time, as a wine producer myself, to see what brand women really like to drink, not brand, but style, creating the beverage for them to be able to genuinely have to enjoy. And I think that with women winemakers.
So this feels like a good time to talk about the women in your own life. You've mentioned your mom already, who have shaped who you are as a chef and a sommelier. So tell us about her and about others who may have really influenced what you do now.
My grandmother is the guiding force, particularly on that, because very practical in her approaches. We didn't know because when I look at some of her techniques, we were a lot of grandkids in the house at some point. At times we're 20 in the house.
Oh, wow.
Literally.
20 is, that's a
20
lot,
grandkids in
even
the
for
house.
an African family, that's a lot, yes.
Yeah. On those Christmas days, it's just going to go down. And she would this is something very practical. She would take flour and a little bit of oil and stir that a little bit and add into the chicken stock to make the chicken soup. That was stretching food. And you know what that is called in the modern world?
Yeah,
that's called a roux.
A roux, exactly. Yeah.
And
before there was a roux, there was grandma.
Because I look at it now, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what she used to do. And they didn't have the cookbooks. They didn't have the recipes written down. I wish she could have write some of the things down for me. I do really, really, really wish. And, it's giving me a reason to write them down now. Yeah, you got to come and see my recipe book. It's scribbled. It's recipes everywhere. And I think that's been the amazing part, the gift she gave me to able to not be afraid of the heat. If you walk in my house today at 1 o'clock in the morning, I will get you something to eat.
Munashe, don't tell me that, because next time when I come to town, I'll just show up at the house, not the restaurant.
At the house. Look, I cook the few from home. So, but that's been the influence for me. I genuinely enjoy taking care of others. And I look at that, our house has been the one with most guests. It's just been like that.
Well, there's that saying that people forget what you say, but they remember how you make them feel. So when people feel at home through your food, through your hospitality, they don't forget that stays with them.
Absolutely.
So when you think about your grandmother's cooking, I just love imagining the scene of Christmas Day and grandchildren and noise and the smell of food. Do you have a favorite recipe of hers or a favorite memory that stayed with you these years? Yeah, please tell me.
Yeah. There is 2 simple ingredients, pumpkin and peanut butter.
Okay. And for a soup?
Yeah, it's an ultimate bliss. I tell you where this really come from, because as the farmers, you grow maize, tobacco, and cotton, and in the middle of the row, the grannies plants peanut butter, pumpkins in the center of the rows, and then in the growing season, after the hard day of the field, she'll pick some pumpkin leaves, take home, peel, make, we call it sadza. I don't know what you call it in your language, but the mealie meal pap.
Yes. Yes. We don't have it in Ethiopia, but I've
diet.
had it here. Yes. In Kenya and other places, that pumpkin leaf is delicious. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's just, it's one hell of a relish that, I go home, I'm like, Mom, can I get a little bit of the pumpkin leaves? And I'm starting to grow some of that at the restaurant. I am literally starting to grow some of that. And she would take the pumpkins, roast them or braise them. Roast is modern. Let's go back to basic. Braise the pumpkins. And then she would take for the thickening. Do you know when I learned that you thicken with cornstarch? My grandmother's kitchen.
Yeah.
She would take corn, pour water, stir, let it sit, and she just sift the top starch. And that thickens the pumpkin soup. And then after that, scoop of peanut butter. That I will do 3-5 times a week going to school. That was
it. That was the staple.
That was the staple. Look, it's quick she can do it beforehand in the morning, warming up for you beforehand at night, warming up for you in the morning, and there you go to school.
And when you think about it, how nutritious pumpkin is, how much protein peanuts have, the wisdom they had was before we had the words to say, this is this is that. They had the wisdom to know what would sustain their family and their kids.
Well, balanced diet.
Absolutely.
And able to look, I really look into that and say, wow, this was something to look at. And perhaps they didn't understand what that means at that point, but surely they had the understanding of what that means.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what I do now is I take the same ingredients and elevate it in a modern something. That is what I've been up to. So let's talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about Harry Kitchen, because the meal we had there was divine. I remember my kids, like after every course he would bring and you tell us a little bit about what it is and what is, they would just say, oh, this was my favorite one. Then the next would come, be like, no, actually, this is my favorite one. And I was like, I see where this is going. And it truly was. There was nothing bad we had. Every dish was exceptional. So I want to ask you a few questions specifically. So number one, absolutely,
Who was Harry in the Harry kitchen? What is that? A person? Is that something in,
So Harry is a clay pot used in cooking in the Southern African. I was sitting as this happening, thinking, what could I do that is so much of a reminder? When you say Harry,
Yes.
something inside me says, hey, 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 hey.
Mm.
Are you getting things done right? It's this. So she would do the pumpkin leaves, or the beef stew. It's cooked. There's a small little clay pot, and
Yes.
that in that clay pot, we all know whatever comes out of that
Yes.
is that's the mother of, whatever comes out of that is the most delight.
Definitely. That we have in Ethiopia. We call it shekla. And we have that. That is what we cook in as well. And you're right. It's actually a prized possession. It gets seasoned over time, gets better with
Yes.
time. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
for me, it's similar to a Dutch oven. When they say that the Dutch oven pot, that's if somebody
Yes.
who's modern wants to know what Harry is as similar as the Dutch oven pot.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you named it a reminder for you of what your vision was, to create this place that felt like home. So let me ask you, what did it feel like that first day that this restaurant opens? Because we've already said you were young, you're the sommelier, you're the head chef, and it's not a small restaurant. It has got several tables inside, outside. We happened to be there in winter, so we were lucky that it was not as crowded as like the holiday season. But bring me to the day that you opened it. What did that feel like to you?
It's a Friday, and then somewhere around November 20th, I tell you, 2020, we are at the heart of COVID-19. And I left the job. I'm like, the food truck is not putting anything on the table. The whole world is in disaster. And
Yeah.
I had when somebody, I think I will pick I had a dream pitch. I had a dream to go out and do the Africanness. I wanted to, in the hospitality industry, you get to see Black people going to a restaurant, and there is still, in all sense of the word, there is still some kind of way people look and feel about a Black crew working in the establishment.
For sure.
I'll stand behind it anytime. Also, reason being is some of the Black people with the money to afford haven't realized the etiquette of the so-called dining space. And I took all this in consideration, and this was what I say is my responsibility. I will make a place where anybody with this skin tone, which could anybody who is Black would walk in here and know that this is home. That's what I wanted.
So tell me, what in 5 to 10 years, where do you want your own brand and your own wine to be? What's the goal and the aim? Is it distribution? Is it variety? What's your 5 to 10-year vision with that?
First and foremost, I want to make wines that are African palate friendly.
What does that mean? What does that mean, African palate friendly to you?
Juicy, a bit, generally not too extremely acidic, but approachable. The African palate is not going, because wine is not our culture initially. So what I want to make is the beverage that, because when I give you something big, bold, robust, and it's your first time, that's the last time I see you on that wine glass. So it's the last. So what I want to create now is, could I make something juicy, round, elegant, and smooth.
So tell me, what does Global Sip, your brand, what do you carry right now? And where can we find it? Can we find it outside of Franschhoek, or do I have to come back?
Look, for now, you gotta get to come back, but I'm working with a Kenyan distributor for now, and then
Great.
a German warehouse. So we have got 2 outlets for now. So
Great.
sooner or later, I think the website will be www.globalsip.co.za. And
Okay.
yeah, that's where you could order online and we can ship the wines to you.
Fantastic. That's so
And look,
exciting.
the name Global Sip is inspired by this because, you know, I wanted to approach this in my own interpretation. Wine is a universal language. Let's gather
Definitely.
globally and have a sip. This is the reason. Wine is a universal language. Let's gather globally and have a sip. The best thing ever happened to me today is to be a Black African. It's the best
Amen.
thing ever happened to me right today is being a Black African. And that, when we can assure and reinforce, because look, if I'm Zimbabwean, if I start to make wine, I'm gonna introduce Zimbabweans to it. If you are Ethiopian, if you start to do wines, this is a win-win for everybody. I understand this could take from those with too much, but that's
okay.
that's for me. Because look, if I'm going to take the wine to my people, they will drink it. They will drink it. And I've witnessed it. I've cooked for my people, and hey, they're telling me, hey man, that's what we want to eat. And
Absolutely.
I know the feeling. You know, this can't be explained to me. I know what that feels like to put everything and do all you can, and somebody says genuinely, hey, that's it. That's what we expected plus more. So that's
I love how you
and
said
yeah,
that if you take it to Zimbabwe, they'll drink it, because it's true. Here in Kenya, here in Ethiopia, there are local brands that are, you know, relatively young, you know, 10, 15 years, that are growing in the market. They're now offering wine tours. They're starting to, you know, educate the public. And absolutely, someone like me, I'm looking for that brand. I'm looking for the Zimbabwean wine. I'm looking for the Ethiopian brand, the Kenyan brand that I can send my money to. I'll never make the wine, but I will drink it. And so we are looking for those opportunities. I think you mentioned earlier the Drinking Abroad, I think, podcast, which I listened to, that you did with, is it Tunane Price?
Tuan
Price. I really love what she's
Yeah.
doing, you know, creating these experiences for African Americans in particular to come to the continent and, you know, have these experiences with other Black people, but who are in South Africa. I think that kind of bridge that we need to make to help each other is really powerful. And for me and this podcast, that's what we're trying to do, is shine a light on, if you're looking for a good wine, don't just go to what you've always done. You look for the Black winemakers who are really hard at work, you know, creating and making beautiful wine. So
it's the appreciation when you do something.
yeah,
It's just somebody coming to tap your back and say, hey, you go for it. I would take this bottle to support your cause. And
absolutely. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
I said last week to the guys, there's nothing sweeter than Black money coming to another Black person.
That's great. That's great. I love that.
No, there's nothing.
Yes.
Because you know what's going to happen. You give me the money. Thank you. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pay another Black person. Guess where they're going to shop? From another. You see,
absolutely.
When we start to understand that, when we start to understand you know, in these smaller communities where it's very, very deep African, I like the ecosystem in there. Somebody grow the maize, somebody on the grinding mill, somebody grow the vegetables, somebody has got the kettles for the feeding. It just and the more we get to understand that in a global scale is the faster we can make more black billionaires because black money has gone somewhere else except in a black community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's such a powerful statement. And I actually think it's a perfect way to start to wrap up this conversation because
Super.
that's what it's all about. Supporting each other. That's Ubuntu. That's what Mandela
That's
wanted,
it.
I think, at the end of
That's
the
it.
day.
That's it.
It's Ubuntu. I am because you are, you know, and thank you for putting that out there. Thank you for how you're creating that. I mean, we not only felt at home, but we felt grateful that we had a place where we could come and put the money, exactly what you said, into the hands of somebody who was creating this for somebody else. So you are so
Truly
appreciated.
appreciate it.
And no, I appreciate it. And oddly enough, we always ask our guests 2 questions before we let them go.
Uh-huh.
So the first question, and honestly, we ask this of every guest, not just our sommelier guests, but we ask every
Super.
guest, what is their favorite drink?
Ah,
Munashe, this is for you. Try and pick one.
I do drink rosé. For me, this is it. You when you get a chance to come to my house, bring a bottle of rosé, and that's it.
Okay, I'll do that.
That
Rosé.
because you know what? No pretentiousness, and it's see-through. We can see through the bottle.
I like that. I like that. So if you're not drinking wine, though, what's your favorite drink?
Oh, if I'm not drinking wine, I am a big brandy fan. I drink
Okay.
great significant amount of brandy, and I've been recently introduced to a French brand. It's called Sedon. It's one of my favorite things. Like that's a cheap treat, you know. I don't get to do it more often, but it's a sparkling red from Beaujolais,
Interesting.
I think. It's a,
Interesting.
you know, my sommelier friends when they hear this, they'll come for me. I tell you,
I'm like, oh, interesting. But those who know
they
might
will
question.
come for me. So it's not one of those very popular things, but such a bliss to indulge in.
Okay. A red sparkling. I'm going to look for that.
Yeah,
And then before I let you go, you know, our show is
yeah.
all about joy and justice. So, Munashe, tell me, what is bringing you joy in your life these days?
Able to wake up and go exercise my rightful right to cook for others. That is giving me a lot of bliss. And another part of perhaps the next conversation is African education system. You and Mr. Parker spoke a little bit about that on your last podcast.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, for me, it's next is about also the education system. As you know, me, I'm working to see if I can start my own school system or education system, however you will put it. I haven't kind of get the right term to it, but yeah, that's one of the things getting me so excited, able to educate Africans the African way.
Absolutely.
That is something I would like to take on a really,
Mm.
really brisk and handful to see how best I could educate the Africans in an African way.
Beautiful. I mean, I love that what gives you joy is more work, more service is what brings you joy. So that's really something special, Munashe. You're really one of a kind. And truly, Munashe, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on Salam and Hello today. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you
your
so
story.
much. It has been a wonderful one, and I hope not the last one because
I
we
hope not either.
still have
We'll
a
stay
lot
in
of
touch.
Africanness to share, surely. And thank
Absolutely.
you so much to your listeners. It's been a lovely, lovely, lovely session.
Thank you so much. And listeners, we will be putting all of Munashe's information in the show notes so you can see where to find Harry Kitchen, how to follow him and his work. And we'll also link up some other places where you can see his interviews with other platforms, including the New York Times article that called him a tour de force. And I'm sure after listening to this conversation, you can only agree that that's exactly what he is. As always, we would love to hear from you. So send us a DM, send us an email. You can find us at Salam and Hello on all the platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or you can email me, lily@salamandhello.com. So thank you for listening. Thank you to Munashe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
I know it's hard, but baby, you just got to hold on. I know it's hard, but baby, you just got to hold on.